to the 2012 Macon County Republican Party Congressional Candidate Forum. We present the colors, the Marine Corps League. Better.
Present arms.
United States Marine Corps veteran Jim Basie will lead the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Detail. Harry Colors. Detail. Order. Colors. Detail. Left. Feet. At the trail. Collar right. March.
Thank you. Have a seat. I want to thank Jim Basie for being here today, leading the pledge. Jim is a Vietnam veteran. He was in Vietnam from 1965 to 1966 in the HMN 163rd Helicopter Squadron, which was the most decorated helicopter squadron during the Vietnam War. He flew as a gunner 239 combat missions and is here to tell about it, but not today. But thank you very much for your service. We've got a medallion here that we had made for him. Sometimes you see these with the Republican emblem inside for dedicated service, but we've got one with his unit emblem in it, and we'd like to give this to him and thank him for his service to our country. Thank you, sir. Today's invocation will be delivered by Reverend Donna Cobb. Reverend Cobb has been in Macon County as a reverend for 10 years. Reverend Cobb.
Would you pray with me, please? Almighty God, hallowed be thy name, and blessed be your Son, Jesus Christ. We bow our heads in reverence to you, Lord, to thank you for your abounding love, for your gracious presence, and for your immeasurable benevolence. We are grateful for this day. It is a day of opportunity. It may be a day of surprise, of challenge, of joy, but Lord, it may unfold to be all three. But it is a day of your creation, and so it is a day to rejoice in. Our hearts are full of thanksgiving for your blessings you have given each of us. We live in a country that measures its freedom by the men and women who have given their lives and those who still stand today to ensure the human right to liberty. We live in a country of breathtaking beauty with creative and dedicated citizens and a deep and a meaningful heritage. We live in a country that upholds the values and morals of its leadership, knowing that you, Lord God, instill such skill, insight, and experience in those you call to serve. This day we have gathered with those around us to experience your grace as our time together unfolds. May you bless with wisdom and courage those who would take on the mantle of a government leader. May you bring discernment to the minds of those who have the privilege and opportunity to listen. May you bless those who have organized this event, for they endeavor for the good of all. And God of grace and mercy, would you bring healing, hope, and victory to this great nation. Whether consciously or not, may we, the American people, faithfully travel courageously and with wisdom the road that your will dictates. Almighty God, please receive this prayer in the reverence and honor that we offer it to you. We share it now in the name of our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Now that's spreading the wealth, if you know what I mean. That's very nice. Thank you. We need that. I'd like to recognize some dignitaries, in no particular order because I wrote these names down as they came in. But Senator Jim Davis, our senator, is here. Senator Davis, thank you. Sheriff Robbie Holland. Robbie, thank you. Former chairman of the board of the Macon County Board of Commissioners and chairman of our party, Harold Corbin. One of our fine newer Republican commissioners, Jim Tate, doing a great job. Thank you, Jim. Assistant District Attorney Ashley Hornsby Welch and her husband, the Sheriff's Attorney Brian Welch. Thank you for coming. Gary Dills, our former chair of the party, and it's about time you showed up, Gary. Thank you. And a lifetime dignitary, as always, Helen Carpenter. Thank you. And one more that I forget sometimes, but I need to remember him every time. Longtime dedicated Republican and military veteran, Mr. John Crawford. Where are you, John? Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the Gem Country Republican Women's Club for the fine decorations and food, as always. They never let us down. They do a great job, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. I want to thank Jensine and Buddy Crossman. They did their own little booth over at the gun show and selling cookies, unbeknown to a lot of people, and whatever she made, she donated to the Republican Party, and she gave us a check today for $280. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Mary Jane Lofton, our great treasurer, wanted me to mention there are donation envelopes on the table, so don't be shy. Don't be shy. Also, just so you know, we do have a reporter today. Chad Simmons is here. So Chad, wave your arm so all the candidates know who you are. Okay? Thank you. Well, thank you everybody for coming here today. This is a great opportunity for candidates to know you and for you to know candidates. It's kind of the last of three opportunities they have had directly with the Macon County Republican Party, and we appreciate them all being here today. I can't say I know what happened to Chris Petrella. He had planned on being here, so I don't know what happened. I hope he's okay. But thank you, candidates, for being here today. We have, I will name you alphabetically order so everybody knows who you are, and just wave your hand or stand up momentarily. Spence Campbell. Jeff Hunt. Mark Meadows. Vance Patterson. Kenny West, and Ethan Wingfield. Thank you very much. What we're going to do today, this is a really important process in the democratic process, and you know, you don't have that many. It's not like you live with these people and you can divorce them or anything. One of these people, hopefully, is going to be our next congressman in Washington, doing a good job for us, and we all know how important that is. Washington for too long has has been playing games, including some Republicans. We want somebody that can go up there and fight for us, stand their ground, make government a little bit smaller, lower taxes, and the typical things that the platform of the Republican Party talks about, but is not always held to task by our representatives. But we expect that out of whoever goes to Washington here, and you'll be hearing for us if you get elected and you don't do it, but you'll be hearing hopefully a lot of thanks if you get that position, that honored position, and we hope we see a lot of you coming back to Macon County, because we are not the stepchild of North Carolina anymore. We are the children of North Carolina out here in the West, and we expect to see a lot of you. The format for today, as I have on the agenda, is going to be a 5-minute speech, stump speech, if you will, by each candidate. I think we have plenty of time today that after they do that, we will open it up for questions. We don't have a second microphone, so you'll have to stand up, please, when you have a question, if you're able to stand up and ask the question. And please make it a generic question that all of the candidates can answer, because if we start asking one candidate one question, it's going to be unfair, and the balance might not be a level playing field. So I want to keep it level. So if you'll do that with your question, something that they can all have a chance to answer. Rod here is going to be our timer. Rod has got, for the candidates here, at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, he's going to hold up just one of them. The yellow one, the warning light there, it says 30 seconds. That means you have 30 seconds left. At the 5-minute mark, he's going to put the one in red that says end. I thought of a lot of things to put on there, but we'll just put with end. Okay? And that's what we'll do. And then after a period of questions and answers, we have this room for a while, so I hope they can stay around and do more meet and greet and answer questions and talk to people one-on-one. I think we'll get a lot of traction out of that from our perspective as members and from theirs as candidates. So if we would have Spence Campbell come up here to the microphone, and we will start our speeches. Thank you very much.
I'm a little concerned about the guy with the signs, but I'm more concerned about the Marine next to him, so I'm going to stay on track. Ms. Carpenter, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for having us here this evening. I'm very privileged and proud to be here. I'm proud to be a part of a political system that was created by a group of folks almost 240 years ago, like no other in the history of the world. We all know what that is. And I could just see those folks when they finished in Philadelphia, passing it off to the next generation. Here it is, folks. It's the best we could do. But it's not finished. It depends on each generation that comes after us to make it better than it was when you got it. How's that working for them now? Not very well. But up until about 30 years ago, it worked pretty darn good. Generation after generation of Americans made it better than it was before they had it. Sometimes that meant tremendous sacrifice, the willingness to give our lives in the defense of freedom, in the defense of the country created by those folks in Philadelphia. Sometimes it just meant manning the home front and taking care of our kids and grandkids while father was away at war. Sometimes it meant sacrificing so that people at war could have what they needed to win. In every case, when there was some kind of conflict that confronted America, Americans, with our indomitable spirit, rose to the occasion, took care of business, and went back to work, making this country greater than it ever was before. World War II is a good example of that. When those founders basically said to us, earn it, those folks earned it over and over again. How many countries in the history of the world have been willing to send their sons and daughters to die in places we never heard of and can't even pronounce, simply so they can be free? The answer is nobody, just us. And we've done a heck of a job. We have a right to be proud of America. We have a right to be proud of ourselves. We have a right to be proud of the sacrifices made before we could even stand up here and say what we're saying tonight. So what we face today is a dangerous place in our history. It's another one of those kinds of challenges that we have to stand up to again. And we all know in our lives we're going to have to do that sometime. So here we are facing a challenge that might take America to a place where she doesn't want to be. And in our hearts and souls, we know we shouldn't be. And yet, if we're honest with ourselves, we would know that we all have made that possible. We have all been so disgusted with the political system gifted to us by the founders and what our leaders have done in both parties that we don't want anything to do with it. So we look the other way when they were doing what they've done. And we've done that for too many years and too many elections. It isn't what people who came before us fought and died for, sacrificed for. It isn't what the founders intended this country to be. But it's not too late. We're all here because we're concerned about where we are today and what's about to happen to us. We're all here, I hope, to find out maybe that we're all in this together, and if we work together, we can fix it. It's not too late. When the founders said earn it, they meant it. They didn't say buy it. That's exactly what the political leadership has been doing in this country for the last 30 or 40 years. They bought it over and over again. And they're about to do that again, because that's all they know how to do anymore. It's time for a lesson for them that they need to learn. It's time for a lesson from us about what this country is about. This country is about us, not them. There's a for sale sign on the top of the Capitol. It says America for sale. It's the land of gimme, gimme, gimme. This is our chance to stand up and say, enough is enough. In my life of public service, more than a quarter century in the military and 20 years or so in Hendersonville, where I moved after I retired, having married my Hendersonville bride in college 45 years ago, I've done a lot of work locally to gain the respect and knowledge that I need to be the congressman that you want to help lead your community and America back to its rightful place. I ask you for that opportunity. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jeff Hunt. I'm District Attorney in Henderson, Transylvania, and Polk counties. I live in Brevard. I used to have, in addition to those counties, I used to have McDowell and Rutherford counties. I've been the elected District Attorney for 18 years. I've been elected 5 times. I've unseated a entrenched Democrat in 1994 and the first Republican, as far as we're able to determine, to be the DA in the 29th District since the 1920s. And I'm here tonight because I'm running for Congress. My wife is not with me. I've been married to Margaret for 36 years and 3 weeks. And Helen, she says hello. I've got 2 children who are out of the nest completely, and even now when they call home, they don't ask for money. So I know that's a big sign when they stop asking for money. So I'm at that stage in my life. I would describe myself as a constitutionalist. I believe, for those of you who are students of the Constitution, I believe in the originalist interpretation, very much like Anthony Scalia, although I'm not as smart as he is. I am a religious conservative. I believe that life begins at conception, period. And I strongly support the marriage amendment, as I'm sure everybody, certainly at these tables, and probably you do too. Marriage is between one man and one woman. The family is the cornerstone of Western civilization for thousands of years. And marriage between one man and one woman is the cornerstone of the family. And that's just all there is to it. I have business experience with international business. I was in-house counsel for Olin Corporation. I've also had 2 small law practices, which I was successful in before I became the DA. I was 19 years in the private sector before I ran for office, and I think that's important. I think when you run for office, you should have some private sector experience before you go into the public domain, so to speak. So I was 19 years in the private sector before I became the DA. Two of the issues I'd like to talk about, if I have time, very briefly. I hope you'll look at my resume, my bio back on the table. You can find out more about me. I'm running because we've got to stop the deficit spending. I'm proposing a bill or a program that Connie Mack from Florida is sponsoring. He's a congressman down there. It is a several-year gradual decline of the deficit spending until we get the balanced budget. We get to zero deficit spending. And we do that under this plan by reducing government spending. We do not create new jobs in the government. We create new jobs in the private sector. And you cannot grow the private sector unless you shrink government spending. So that's the whole name of the game. We will not grow jobs in the private sector until we're sustainable in terms of our fiscal house and get it in order. It's not right now. We're unsustainable. But the other thing that's bothering me this afternoon is why in the world are we approaching $4 gas? Amen, right? Why doesn't the president entertain expanding production of shale oil? We have resources all over this country and in our friend to the North, Canada, and we're slamming the door on that. It's crazy. I railed against the president when he was running because he didn't have an energy policy. Well, it turns out he does have an energy policy, and that's $9 a gallon gas. That is not the policy that the people in this room expected. We didn't vote for him, but we didn't think he was completely crazy. They want to force us into some of these alternative energies when we all know in this room that gas and petroleum products are going to be our energy source for the next 100 years. That's all the technology is telling us. So why don't we drill where Cuba and Venezuela drill in the Gulf? We're not allowed to do that. Why don't we expand oil sand production in Canada and here? And why don't we look at nuclear? Well, I've got 30 seconds. There is a new small reactor process for nuclear power that's much safer, much less radiation, much less danger for accidents. Why don't we explore that? Because the president and the EPA won't let us. And the last thing I'll say on that is natural gas. Natural gas, folks. We're the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. Will the president and the EPA let us get into that? Nope. That's got, the congressman from the 11th district has got to help change that in Washington, and that's going to be a struggle every day. So I'm asking you for your support this afternoon. Please take a look at our website, jeffhuntforcongress.com, and thank you for letting me run over.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Mark Meadows. I'm a small businessman from Jackson County. Actually, I have a long history here in Macon County. I look over at Harold and Helen and a number of them, and I can remember when I was the lone person that showed up for the precinct meeting in Macon County. And the thoughts, Harold, having a room this large of people that showed up for a forum, and back then was rare, but it was a party that was built. And you know what happens when you show up for a precinct and you're the only person? You end up being the chairman. And so we've had a long history together. And what I wanted to do today is share just a little bit about who I am and what I stand for. I'm my wife, Debbie, of 32 years. We have had 2 children that still do call home for money, Jeff. And they're both in college. I'm proud to say they're both doing well. We, as a small businessman, I believe that we need to take a business approach to Washington, D.C. It's time that we balance the budget. It's time that we make sure that we have a true sense of what it takes. And so I stand for life, liberty, and less government, those 3 things. And under life, I am unapologetically pro-life. I believe that marriage is between one man and one woman, period. You're going to have a chance to vote on it May 8th. Make sure you get out and vote, because the enemy is making sure that they're turning out. And so I would ask you to do that. Under liberty, what we need to do is make sure that we protect the Constitution. You know, it's time that we say no to liberal judges interpreting what our Constitution, what our laws are. Enough is enough. We need to stand up for our Second Amendment rights and make sure that we don't allow those to be overrun by executive order. You know, it's not President Obama's country, it's our country. And quite frankly, it's time. 2012 is when we need to send him home. We need to also, thank you, we also need to make sure that we honor our commitments to our veterans. You know, it's sad when we ask them to go serve, and then after they get back, we say, you know what, the deal we made with you is not good enough. We're going to change it. We're going to increase your premiums for health care. We're going to change your retirement. We need to make sure we honor our veterans and stay loyal to that. We need to make sure that we go on with less government. You know, it's ridiculous some of the things that we're doing. When you think about it, we're borrowing money from China and we're still giving them foreign aid. There's a problem with that. All right? We spend money on things we have no business spending money on. Why do we spend $2.6 million to teach Chinese prostitutes how to drink responsibly? That's not a role of the American government. I mean, I can tell you it's not. And you're looking at me as if that's not true. It is true. But we also need to look at is some of the extremes that we've had. Let's take the San Joaquin River in California. It was moved over so they could irrigate. California paid to move it over. The environmentalists said, well, there was 500 salmon that might do a little bit better if we moved it back. So the federal government is paying to move it back at the cost of $22 million per fish. Now, I love to fish and hunt, but there is no fishing that is worth $22 million. That's some high-priced sushi. I mean, as we look at that, we need to make sure that we cut it back. Most people think that the government is the answer. And you know what? The government doesn't create jobs. It is not the answer, it is the problem. Thomas Jefferson said a government big enough to give you everything you have is big enough to take away everything that you have. And you know, we need to remember that, and we need to cut back on that. And so as we look at that, we need to make sure that we cut back on the things that quite frankly, were not part of our Constitution or our way of government to begin with. We need to make sure that we cut back on regulation. We've got a 2020 plan. If you think of 2020 being perfect vision, it's a perfect vision for jobs. It says we need to close the loopholes and lower corporate taxes to 20%. We need to make sure that we start drilling and making sure that we lower gas prices. Gas prices were $1.80 a gallon when Obama came in, and now what happens is we're pumping at $4. Even Democrats will say that they voted for the wrong person when you ask them about the pump. So I would ask you to stand up with me and take back this country, because you know, we the people is what it's all about. It's not about we the president. Thank you so much.
My name is Vance Patterson. I'm a neighbor of yours from Burke County. That's down by Marion. I'm a father of 4, married 37 years to my wife, Mary Jo. I'm a Tea Party Republican. I initiated the first Tea Party down in Burke County in 2009, and I've spoken at 4 Tea Parties since then. I'm a conservative Republican, having voted for Nixon back in 1972, and ever since voted conservative. I'm an American businessman, and by that I mean I use American ingenuity, the American free enterprise system, and the American work ethic to start companies and create jobs. I've started 16 companies. 2 of those companies made the Inc. 500 list for the 500 fastest growing companies in America. And twice I've been Entrepreneur of the Year finalist here in our Southeast region. I believe in America, and I believe in the people of Western North Carolina, that we can, if given the opportunity, turn our economy around and restore prosperity. My campaign is about jobs, prosperity, now, and the fact that we don't have to wait. We don't have to wait on the state or the rest of the country. You see, manufacturing is coming back. I know, I'm a manufacturer, and I've been seeing it happen for the past year and a half. But it's not the same kind of manufacturing that left. It's not the 500 to 1,000 employee companies. It's more like 25 to 100 employee companies. Companies like mine that pay better, have better benefits, care more about the employees, and the employees care more about the company. We do things like profit sharing and extended vacations and things like that. Now here's the bad news. Nobody knows we're here. Half the state doesn't know we're here because we're west of I-77. We need to not only prepare our communities with good transportation, good education, communication, and recreation, but we also need a serious, aggressive business package, a business plan put together to take our district, our lifestyle, our culture, our work ethic to the rest of the country and the rest of the world. I have negotiated and done business all across the country and around the world, including Russia and Brazil, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, all across Europe. I know what the other owners are looking for, and it's not tax breaks. They're looking for a quality of life that we've got here. I believe in tax reform. To simplify our tax code, get all forms of social engineering out of it. 999, fair tax, flat tax, all good starts. I believe in term limits. That it is the professional politicians in Washington who are bankrupting our country because they don't know how to stop spending money. I believe and support the Defense of Marriage Act, traditional marriage. I am against amnesty. I believe there are consequences that our parents taught us. There are consequences to our actions, and we should not sacrifice that culture for people who have broken our laws. I believe we should apply business principles to balancing the budget, stopping the bleeding, and retarding the debt. That would be consolidating, cutting, and then controlling. That's the way we do it in business. I'm against all forms of abortion. I believe any idea conceived by God should be cared for in this lifetime. And I will stand up to political correctness. The first stand I'll take is to affirm God in government. Not religion in government, but God in government. Our founding fathers put God in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And this government is trying to abolish the use of God everywhere. G.K. Chesterton, a famous poet and philosopher back in the 1920s, once wrote, "Once abolish the God, and the government becomes the God." Is that not what this government is trying to do? To abolish God and get us to come to it for all our needs. I worry every day that we are losing the America our parents left us. I mean, when we were growing up, could you have ever imagined borrowing money from a communist country? I mean, what in the world? Or that our economy would be dependent on the oil coming out of the Middle East. We need to drill our oil, mine our coal, tap our natural gas, and build safe nuclear power to demonstrate to the world that we are the center of the global economy, the center of world freedom, and self-reliant, determining our own future. My name is Vance Patterson. I'm running for U.S. Congress. I ask you to support my campaign so I can work for my family, for your family, and to save America for future generations. Thank you.
Well, many of y'all know me. My name's Kenny West. I live in Clay County, about 30 miles from here. I ran last time in the 2010 primaries and did very well. Had not planned on running again. This is a big district, 15 counties. Now you got 17 counties. I was in one the other night. It took me almost 4 hours to get home from. So it's just a long way. But I'm very, very fortunate to have a wife that supports me. She's here with me today. We've been married going on 34 years. My son that lives in Asheville, so he's helping me out in Asheville. He's fixing to be married in May. My daughter lives in Clay County. She's a high school teacher. She's getting her master's degree. Should be finishing up this month, so I'm really proud of her. And last night I was really proud of her down there huddling in my basement with all the storms going over. So it was really a fun time. But you know, when I looked at what was going on in this country last time, I thought, you know, we have got to stop this, and we didn't. In other words, we got a lot of things turned around, but what we didn't do is change this district. And we should have been able to change this district last time, and we didn't do it. So when about 27 people come over to Clay County, they met with me. They said, "Mr. West, would you consider running again?" And I said, "Well, let me think about it." And after much prayer and thought, we decided to run again. And after my wife said, "Kenny, you go for it. They need you." So when my wife says I can do something, believe me, as long as I've got her support, we're going forward. That's just what we do. But there's a reason for it. This country, this district over here, let's just talk about this district. I deal with businesses every day of the week. Every day of the week. And the small business owners, the generations of business right here are being decimated right now. The mom and pop stores over in Graham County, they've lost their jobs after like 15 years. I had a company the other day, 62 years in business. They're out of business now. Why? Because they can't hold on anymore. 28 people. Most of them had my insurance, so it does roll downhill. So I've been finding myself trying to figure out how to save these people's insurance that they have versus how to expand the business with new employees, because that's not what's happening right now. There's almost a 25% unemployment rate from the age of 19 to 25-year-olds. That means about 1 out of every 4 kids that graduate from high school and college, they're either going to move back home, which many of us have just wished they would just go on about their own business, but they're going to move back home, or many of them are going to have to take jobs at Walmart, things that they didn't go to college for. So we've got to change this. How are we going to do it? We've got to lower corporate taxes. We have to get investment back into this country, investment that's gone out of this country. We've got to lower capital gains taxes so people can sit up here and invest back into this country from the wealth that they have from their investments from abroad. Why? Because we've already taxed on that money to begin with. We're double taxing every one of these people. We need to lower regulations. Why do we have to lower regulations? Because the regulatory process, right now there's been roughly 180 regulations put in effect every year since Obama's been in there. 180 regulations. Now these are not taxes yet. The new health care laws have already got them in there. We've got to change it, but more than anything else, we've got to send somebody up there that's willing to fight for it. You know, we've all seen the people that go up here and tell everybody, yeah, we say all the right things. As I've told people many times, these men right here aren't my enemies. My enemies are the ones that sit up here and stamp on the Constitution. My enemies are the ones that sit by and watch Obama move forward without them. Them are my enemies. You know, somebody's asked me one time, they said, Kenny, what would separate you from some of the people that's up there in Washington now? Very simple. If President Obama went before everybody and said, and his speech that many of us saw right before Christmas, and he said, you know, what we're going to do is, Congress isn't moving right now, there's gridlock. Republicans aren't doing anything. So we're going to move forward without him. Within 2 to 4 hours, this man would have been up there as your congressman, Mr. President. Even though I recognize you as our president, I respect the presidency. You're only one of 3 equal branches of government. I'm in the other one. This is not a monarchy and you're not a dictator, and you won't move forward without me. We don't have that up there in Washington right now. We have people like John Boehner. Look, I'm glad that he's a speaker. That means the Republicans up there, but I can tell you what he's not doing. He's not fighting for this country. They should be out there every single day on TV. They should sit up here and fight for this country, because if they don't, we've just seen the starting of the gas. We've just seen the starting. I honestly believe that his whole plan is to sit up here and have this gas go up to $6 a gallon, where he can call all the business people in there and say, look, you're going to lower it, get it back down to $4 and be a hero. People, we need to replace Barack Obama, period. Exclamation point. Thank you very much. My name's Kenny West.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ethan Wingfield. I'm glad to be here tonight. It's good to meet many of you all. I know a number of you all, but for those who I haven't had a chance to meet yet, want to introduce myself, tell you a little bit about me. I grew up right down the road in Weaverville here, proud native of Western North Carolina. I'm a devout Christian. I believe that it's important to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ, and I'm not ashamed to do that. And also what that means to me is I am 100% pro-life. I think we've got to stand up for the sanctity of human life. I'm also pro-marriage. I think that marriage should be between one man and one woman. And I tell you what, on May 8th, I don't care who up here you guys vote for, as long as you come out and vote for that marriage amendment, because that's the most important thing on the ballot. Additionally, I'm a businessman. When I went to college up at Brown University up in New England, it's a very expensive college, so I started a business to help pay for it. It was a technology business, grew it up, turned out to be really successful, did that for a few years and was able to sell it. After that, I went and joined a Fortune 500 company where I worked for a few years and was able to work up to become the advisor to the CEO. So why am I standing here before you? Well, I am running for Congress because I believe that Washington is broken. And when I look at what's going on in this country and where we're headed, I fear for my future and for the future of my children. I think that if we don't turn things around really quickly, this country could be headed off of a cliff. We've got $15 trillion of debt. We've got these $1.3 trillion deficits that the president keeps handing to us. This country can't last too long with the way things are going. We need to send somebody up to Washington who's going to fight to get it changed. Now, many of you all may share my frustration with the politicians up in Washington, some of whom are Republicans, who keep saying time and time again, we're going to cut the deficit. We're going to fix these problems. We're going to get the economy going, cut taxes, all these things, and somehow nothing ever happens. Well, why is that? I'm frustrated by it. I think we need to send somebody up who's going to change that. I believe in making my word and keeping it. That's how I was raised here in Western North Carolina. I'm putting out, it's going to be on my website this week, on ethanforcongress.com, a 50-page policy brief that goes into detail about what I stand for and what I'm going to go to Washington to fight for. It really boils down to three things. Number one, we got to get this economy going again. Now, government, as somebody said, can't create jobs. That's true. But they sure can keep them from getting created, and that's what's going on right now. We've got a government that is just down the throats of so many companies that they can't grow. And we've got to get that undone. Would you believe, in 2010 alone, the federal government created 80,000 pages of new laws? And how can a business operate in an environment that's just being choked by all these laws and regulations? We've got to undo that. There are a number of other things that we need to do that my plan goes into detail on. Number two, we've got to balance the budget. We can't keep going with these $1.3 trillion deficits like the president just proposed in his recent budget. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. Look at this carefully. $1.3 trillion is a lot of money. That's the deficit that we're operating under right now. It's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of political courage in order to balance the budget. This is not easy stuff. Somebody mentioned earlier something about a $2.6 million expenditure that the federal government makes on Chinese prostitutes or something like that. I agree, we shouldn't be doing that. But you know what? Ladies, if your husband came to you and said, I'm trying to get our budget down, I found something, it's 5 cents, we're going to cut it. Would you feel proud about that? Well, no. We've got a lot of work to do, and it's going to take a lot of work. For too long, politicians have been dancing around the issues, and they've been creating these dog and pony shows for expenditures that they're going to cut that are never going to get us to where we need to be. You need to send somebody up to Washington who gets it and who's going to go to the jugular and get these issues done. And that's why I'm running. That's what my policy proposal proposes. The last thing is we've got to defend the Constitution and our constitutional rights. They're under threat, and we need somebody who's going to go up there and fight for it. And if you elect me, I'm going to go up to Washington and I'm going to fight and fight and fight to turn this country around and get it headed on the direction that we need to go until those politicians up there either join and do what we need to do or get sent home. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion tonight.
Thank you very much, Candace. That's a good start. We're gonna have plenty of time to open this up for some questions, and I think what we'll do is limit the answers to 2 minutes apiece, and to get through everybody. Also, Chad Sim, I want to thank also, I forgot to thank, and I want to thank Bobby Coggins, our great conservative blogger and website over here with Thunderpig. He always covers our events, doesn't charge us a dime, gets them on his website. Thank you. And our friend and great photographer from the Franklin Press, Linda Mathias in the back there, taking all the pictures. Thank you. And Linda's involved with a great cause also. She's involved with helping the homeless, so thank you for that, Linda. We're going to Chad, I'm going to let you take the first question, and we don't have a second microphone, so if you just, when the person stands up to ask their question, please be real quiet so the candidates can hear it. And we're going to start at the other end this time and go work this way. Chad, do you have a question you'd like to ask the candidates?
Sure. What's the free trade? Y'all just talk about that a little bit. Where do you stand on NAFTA, CAFTA? Would you repeal it? Would you support it? And also, is there an inherent contradiction between conservatives opposing gay marriage? Wouldn't your spouse liberty? How does two gay people getting married affect the economy or anybody? I think Milton Friedman would probably disagree with everybody sitting up here on gay marriage, but just talk about that, free trade.
How much time do we have? There's a lot in there.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Now, there's 2 questions. Do we have 2 minutes for each question? All right. Well, all right. So free trade first. Free trade. It's been. This is an issue that's been debated for many years, but this is an issue. You mentioned Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman was right when he said that free trade is good for the world and and over the long run would be good for the U.S. And I think if you look at the journey that we've been on, I think that it has largely been a good thing for the United States of America. I think it would be disingenuous to suggest that it has come without challenges. Here in Western North Carolina, it has created a number of challenges. But the people who want to go back to restricting trade and want to throw up trade barriers, what they're trying to do is they're trying to claw against the forces of gravity, and they're trying to create or recreate last century. I think that what our policymakers need to be doing is looking to the future and looking to, particularly for here in Western North Carolina, how can we create the jobs of the next century, not try to get the jobs back of the last century. And so as your congressman, what I would seek to do is the first hire that I'm going to make is an economic development expert who's going to be right here in Western North Carolina and who is going to focus on collaborating with local business and government officials to build up this area and make it the best place in the world to do business. And if we can do that, then those debates about free trade will be history. And this region will have a bright future to look forward to. That's the future that I want to create for Western North Carolina.
Go ahead.
I didn't get to the.
For everybody that extra minute.
All right, on the gay marriage thing. I mean, look, I think if we were all if this is not a debate for the Libertarian Party. This is the Republican Party. We're conservatives. We're conservatives because we have values. And one of the values that I hold to firmly is that marriage, as God intended it, is good for society, it's good for families, it's good for individuals. And now I think that we need to be very thoughtful about how we implement that into policy. So that I think it's a nuanced discussion about how to implement our values into policy without creating a big brother, heavy-handed government that someone like Milton Friedman would oppose. But I think we've got to do it. We've got to uphold our values and implement them in our society. And for that point, I do think that this Defense of Marriage Act is the right way to do it, and that's why I support it.
NAFTA, free trade, and gay marriage. Well, that's an oxymoron, isn't it? Let me just talk to you about free trade. The reason NAFTA is put into place and everything, so it allows the United States to lower the barriers for a lot of companies that's coming in here. But our problem has been this. Many of our corporations, and I want everybody to, and I think most people realize this, but many of our corporations are leaving this country, going overseas, opening up plants and coming back here because our taxes are so high here, they can't do business here themselves. So they can actually don't have to pay taxes. I don't know if anybody read it about GE. They closed down one of their oldest plants up in Wisconsin here recently. Where are they taking it? They're taking it over to Brazil. Why? Because they can, no, over to China. Why? Because they can go over there, manufacture the same thing, bring it back over here, and don't have to pay taxes. So if we change our tax laws, it will take care of a lot of this free trade. We have to change the tax laws in the United States of America. And so far as the gay marriage, look, I'm a Christian man, and I believe that God created one man and one woman. Okay, I believe our founding fathers understood that the only reading they had to deal with when they were writing this beautiful document we call the Constitution, even our Declaration, it came from the Holy Bible, and they understood it. That's why 52 out of the 56 signers of the Declaration were Christians. They understood what God meant in the morals of this country. I honestly believe that if you'll read what George Washington said, he said a nation without God would fall. He said it emphatically. But we sit up here all the time and try to justify it. I don't believe it's justifiable. I believe it's a question that's going to be in many people's mind that disagree with people that believe that marriage should be between one man and one woman. I personally believe in this marriage amendment. I think it should go through. Do I think it's the most important thing in our lifetime today? I would not. I think that we have got some big fish to fry, and that right there is one of them if you look at the state issue. But our biggest thing is we've got to get jobs back in here, and if we lower the taxes, then this NAFTA thing will work for many of the people in this area right here. Thank you very much.
All right, free trade, fair trade, NAFTA, and gay marriage. Okay. You need to understand the difference between free trade and fair trade. Free trade is between states. This is what our Commerce Department ensures. Free and open trade, especially with our insurance laws. That's what needs to be established to lower insurance rates on health care. Fair trade, you don't just do free trade with other countries. This is where our country has gone wrong because they do not understand the cultures of the other countries. We're talking about different planes of trade. You know, they say level the playing field. Well, we're like this, and they're down like this. And if we level the playing field, we're going to have to come down, and we don't want to do that. NAFTA was a terrible deal for everybody, including the Mexicans. When it was set up, there was something in there called the Rules of Origin Clause. This is what destroyed the garment industry in western North Carolina, well, of all southern states. It encouraged buying from the maquiladora any garments produced down there for Americans to do that. And that's why all our jobs took off and went. When we negotiate with another country, I'm experienced in negotiating. When I negotiate with another country, my job is not to save the other country. It is to do what is best for my company, for America. That should be our purpose in negotiating. When we negotiated NAFTA, one of the clauses that was in there was about environmental protection. And Mexico was supposed to uphold the laws of the EPA. Well, they didn't, and who saw that coming? Their culture doesn't allow for that. Not that they're liars and everything like that, but they just weren't going to do it. Our government needed to realize that. What was the second one? Oh, gay marriage. Milton Friedman is my guru as far as economics goes. Chicago School of Economics, supply side economics, dealing with the Laffer curve and all that. But I do not look to Milton Friedman for any advice on gay marriage. I really don't know where that came from, because I know Friedman quite a bit, and in all honesty, I don't.
He was a staunch libertarian.
And
I was going to ask that
okay.
question. But
Yeah, this brings up another point. I rode my Harley all around the district last fall. Stopped in Asheville. And what's the liberal paper up here? The Express or the Mountain Express or whatever? Citizen. Well, no, this is the other one. But I go in, and the editor comes out. The first question she asked me was, how can you, as a conservative, ask the government to restrict what goes on in marriage? And I thought about that. Very tough question, especially for us conservatives. And what I said was, there is so much on the other side that is educating our kids that gay marriage is okay, that the gay life is okay, and that we need the balance someplace. And if we have to achieve that balance in government and legislation, we need to put up with that. We need a balance. And she bought that answer. Thought it was a pretty good one. So y'all are welcome to use that. Thank you.
Well, to answer your question, you said, is there an economic impact to gay marriage? And so let me answer that question. There is an economic impact to gay marriage. It's on several different fronts. You know, families, growing families actually produce, the reason why you go to work, the reason why I went to work was to provide for my family, my wife, my children. It has an economic impact. The second one is from a standpoint of Social Security benefits. When spousal benefits, if you extend it to a spouse, gay marriage, then from that standpoint, from a disability, from a spousal standpoint, they will pick up those. There's another one from a death tax point of view. If I were to die, my wife gets a bill, and she gets an exemption. But in doing that, there is another economic component to that. Really, when we're talking about gay marriage, we're talking about two things. One is the benefits that they're looking for and the recognition they're looking for, and those are the two things that we're truly. That's what it's all about. It's not about love, and I've debated Cecil Bothwell, and he's talked about the fact that it's all about love. But you know, the truth of the matter is you can love somebody and the government never tells you who to love, whether it's a husband and wife or whether it's two guys or two gals. I mean, it doesn't do that. So let me go on to free trade. Government, when we look at government getting involved, it always has a negative implication. You can look at government getting involved in the 1990. What happened is finally the administration said enough is enough, and they got government out of the way. We know that period to be what? The Roaring 20s. All right, government gets back involved. What happens? We also know that to be the Great Depression. All right, so we get government out of the way 20 years later, and we see economic growth again. What happens is we get government back involved, and what do we see? We see it go down the tubes again during the Eisenhower administration, and Kennedy actually says enough of government, get it out of the way. And what happens? For 7 years, we see economic prosperity. What happens? LBJ gets back involved. He says the government gets back involved. What do we see? We see Nixon and Carter, and we see gas lines and all those kind of things. Whenever the government gets involved, it has a negative implication in terms of economically. So less government means better prosperity. And if we look at it, when it really gets down to it, that type of economic philosophy doesn't work. It hasn't worked under Democrats. It hasn't worked under Republicans. And so what we can say is Keynesian economics has one thing in common. It's one good thing is that it is bipartisan. It doesn't work under either party. So we need to make sure that we have a fair trade. Thank you.
It's not just words when I say that I believe that families are the cornerstone of society. Families are also the cornerstone of our economy. And I'd be surprised to see Milton Friedman espousing homosexual marriage. Now, he might complain that government was involved in issuing marriage license because he did have a little bit of libertarian in him, but if, as we all know, the family is the cornerstone of society and the cornerstone of our economy, I don't think it's arguable that marriage is the cornerstone of the family, and it's been that way for thousands of years, and not only our civilization recognized that, but all the way back to the ancient Romans and the ancient Greeks. And so these are not just words, they mean something when we say that the family unit is the cornerstone of our economic system and our society. So I don't care, and I don't think many conservatives care what happens in various people's bedrooms. That's not what we're here for. But I do think that the family unit and marriage as the cornerstone of that family unit is one of the most important issues we're going to decide in May. And so I would respectfully contest the issue about Milton Friedman. I don't know everything he wrote, but I do know that he was happily married to Rose, who is still alive. And I don't think she's doing any more writing, but she was as great an economist as he is now that he's gone. Now, free trade has no meaning unless you attach the phrase fair trade to it. Otherwise, it's a bad deal, and that's what's been happening. I'm not crazy about Donald Trump, but there's one thing that he's saying that is true. We are letting the Chinese eat our lunch. They are out negotiating us, and they're not the only ones. We taught India how to be a free market economy, and what are they doing? They're beating us at our own game. And so I am a free trader, but I am a fair trader. And those negotiations have got to be fair for the United States, or we shouldn't enter into them. Now, again, your question was whether we should try to repeal NAFTA. It's too late. Those jobs are gone, and they won't help us. It wouldn't help us today to repeal it. I wouldn't have voted for it, maybe, but I feel the way that my friend Charles Taylor did about NAFTA. And he rejected the concept right off the bat because it was a bad deal. So I'm a free trader as long as we're for fair trade. And that helps our country. But a bad deal is a bad deal, and we're letting China eat our lunch. Thank you.
In my opening remarks, I mentioned that whenever crisis threatened this country, we always have risen to the occasion, dealt with the crisis and gone back to work. We did that on the basis of American character. What is in here that drives us to do what we do? The American character comes from two documents. One is the Constitution, and one is the Bible. That is who we are, and that is what we are all about. And the reason why we're struggling today in the society at large, and on almost every issue you could name, bar none, actually, is because the Constitution and the Bible are under attack by people who don't respect either one of them. And they're winning. They're winning. They've been at this for 30 years, and they're this close to getting where they want to go. The Defense of Marriage Act is really important if we want to say, wait a minute, we need to think about this law. We're not ready to deal with the loss of the kind of morality that we uphold, even though, like the people who wrote the Constitution, we struggle to live up to those ideals. We struggle to live up to the ideals that we've been given in the Bible, in the Holy Book, and in what God has told us to be and do, and how to care for each other as His creation. We struggle with that every day. Defense of Marriage Act is not about two people. It's about what we have been told by God is important to Him. And we need to live up to that. Marriage is defined as a relationship between a man and a woman. If you want to make it something else, we can't call it marriage. We got to call it whatever we want to call it. But it isn't marriage. So it's important that we keep these issues in the context that they belong in, which is where are we going and where are our leaders dragging us to that we don't want to be at? And what are we going to do about it? It doesn't matter what the issue is. All of these issues that we're talking about today, they've already been dealt with by the politicians, and they've screwed them all up so that they can get the reward first and be in line before the rest of us. The only way that's going to get fixed is if we, the people of America, decide it's time to fix it and make it clear we're not going to tolerate this anymore. Is that where you are? That's where I am.
Only a reporter can get away with a double question. We're going to try. I have one question from a member who handed me a question earlier. Are you pro or con regarding offshore drilling? And I would add, why or why not? Ethan.
2 minutes. We're back to 2 minutes.
I'm for it, and I think that we need to do everything we can to increase energy production in a way that enhances our domestic economy and our national security. And I think if you look at what's going on right now, it's pretty clear that the way that we get our oil does neither. We're importing massive amounts of oil from abroad, particularly from hotspots like the Middle East. And if you look at what's driving our account deficit, the amount of money that's flowing out of our economy, it's oil. We've got to do more to increase our domestic production of oil. Offshore is one of the best ways to do it. There's some other resources, the shale oil and other things that we should look at extracting as well. In general, on energy policy, I support an all of the above energy policy. We've got to do everything we can to increase domestic production, and we've got to do it now. By the way, I think it's unconscionable that the Obama administration has canceled the Keystone Pipeline. That's just another of many examples of how this administration is completely out of touch and harming America with its energy policy. We've got to turn that around, and as your congressman, I will work to do that.
In answer to your question, yes, I am for offshore drilling. I'm also for coal shale drilling. I'm also for natural gas drilling in Anwar and in the Gulf. I think a lot of us forget about sometimes back in 07, 08, I remember I was traveling all over the United States, and gas prices went up. In fact, it was about $155 a barrel. And I was coming back, and it was $4.39 a gallon. And it was just, they would only let you get 10 gallons at a time. But we had a president then that did something that was remarkable, and everybody kept telling us we'd never see gas back below $100 a barrel. That's what the experts were saying. George W. Bush signed an executive order, and the executive order is very simple. Drill. You can drill now. He lifted the permits. He lifted the quarantines. And what happened? Within 6 months, not another drop of oil came into this country. We went down to $1.80 a gallon. Why? The sheer perception that the United States was open for business again scared our adversaries, scared the people, even the speculators. They didn't want to speculate no more because, oh my goodness, we're going to actually start drilling again. We've got a situation going on out here that this gas, that the price of gas right now is causing people to make choices, that you and I have never seen before. I was at the Ingles the other day, and I'm going to tell this quick story. I was at Ingles the other day. This was right before Christmas. It was a Friday before Christmas, and I'll never forget this. And I was filling up my truck. Had to go by the bank first and take out a loan to fill up my truck. And this lady said, she said, well, hey, Mr. West, how you doing? Now, I know a lot of people, and I've done business with a lot of people because I've got quite a few businesses under my belt. And I said, you've got me at odds. I don't know who you are. She said, well, I work over here so-and-so. I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm waiting for next Wednesday. I said, oh, the Wednesday before Christmas. I said, got family coming in? She said, no, it's payday. I said, well, everybody's waiting for a payday. Then she looked at me and she said, yeah, but I've got $50 left, and I've got to use 25 of them to put in my car, and I've still got to buy groceries. People are having to make choices now because they're having to get to work. They're having to do something they've never had to do before, and we need to change it, and we need to change it right now. Thank you.
Nobody knows gas prices like a congressional candidate driving around this district. I put in over $300 in my truck last week, and it is incredible. That is a crisis, not to us, but to the nation. What's causing these high gas prices? And yes, I am for offshore drilling, absolutely. What's causing this? One of them is speculation. Speculation forces everything up. If we decide to start drilling again, the speculators will drop the price immediately. That is something our president can do. If he allows it to happen, he says he can't do anything, but yes, he can. That could be done. This could be a states' right issue. We have oil reserves off the coast of North Carolina that we could use. Why can't we drill out there? Do you know they're drilling in the Bering Sea right now, up around Alaska? Why are they drilling up, opening new fields up there? Why are they doing that? And we can't do it here, or in the Gulf, along with the other countries that are coming in. Why did he refuse to allow Keystone Pipeline to come in? The president is keeping that from happening, and the Commerce Department, and the EPA. Do you know that that Keystone Pipeline, it's 1,380 miles of 36-inch pipe. It will deliver 1.1 million gallons of crude to this country every day. We only import 12 million barrels a day. That is 10% of our imports coming from Canada. Canada is good. Canada is okay. Those are jobs we could have. That is something that would drop the speculation immediately. Yes, we should begin drilling off our coast and all around the country. We should also continue to mine our coal and, as I said, tap our natural gas. We are the center of the natural gas world here in the United States, and that is being developed. This can be done if we had strong conservative leadership in Washington and also here in our district to show how it's done and to make sure it gets done for North Carolina and for our future generations. Thank you.
This is one of those topics that probably everybody up here agrees, and so certainly do we need to drill and do it offshore? Yes, but not just offshore. You know, the interesting thing is when President Bush mentioned that we were going to go ahead and do drilling, you know, he talked about ANWR. And if I were to ask most of you where ANWR was in Alaska, you couldn't find it. You know it's in Alaska, but you couldn't find it on a map, and yet it's this, you know, this sacred place that we can't touch, and we were only going to talk about 2,000 acres. You know, it's time that we quit just talking about being energy independent and become energy independent. Part of my plan and part of my 2020 plan is to reduce foreign oil dependency by 20% by the year 2020. What does that mean we have to do? We have to start drilling now. We have to tap our natural gas resources. We have to make sure that when we go to the pump, that we are not funding terrorists. You know, that we're putting it back in our own pocket. You know, it's amazing to me how we can figure out that financial incentives for a state like South Carolina to bring business when you send stuff there. You know, the Saudis figured it out. We just send the money to Saudi or Arabia or wherever. They know how to bring it in. And so enough is enough. We need to make sure that we stop that. Let's go on a little bit further, though. Because part of this is an environmental problem. We're the only country in the world that puts 90% of its natural resources off limits and says we're not going to touch them. And enough is enough. Now we have to stand up as we the people and make sure that we say, the environmental regulations need to be cut. We need to put it on the fast track. We need to make sure that when President Obama uses the Secretary of State to say that we're not going to do the Keystone Pipeline, that it's a congressional issue because it's foreign commerce. It's not foreign affairs. We need to make sure that we put it back in the hands of Congress. Thank you.
The answer is yes. I would press for offshore drilling, and we need to drill everywhere we can. Drill, baby, drill, I think is what we've all heard in this room. As I was sitting here, and my colleagues have heard me talk earlier today about an article in the American Spectator about a speech that Newt Gingrich gave, and I'm not endorsing any particular presidential candidate, but Newt says we could increase our oil output 10% with 3 signatures by the president. One is the Keystone Pipeline. The other is to open up the Gulf again, which I talked about. Let's see. Alaska. But he also talks about natural gas, which I talked about. We've got to get into the concept of natural gas as being, to us, as I said, we're the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. Why would we not convert our trucks, for example, which can be done very easily, to natural gas? Why wouldn't we have that kind of a thrust in our energy program? It's because the president doesn't want to do it. And I would say the leadership in the Democrat Party. A lot of people here at one time were Democrats. They had to leave the party because the leadership of the Democrat Party has gone off the reservation on these kind of issues. The last thing to point out, and I do hope you'll look at the American Spectator article, the EPA is out of control. It's absolutely out of control. The only way to get control of it is to starve it. And the congressman from the 11th district has got to join with the other fiscal conservatives who got up there 2 years ago. There's 87 new freshman Republican congressmen. And we've got to starve, and we don't not necessarily take the EPA out of existence, but they need to be trimmed down so that they're not completely running this economy into the ground. So that is target number 1, is the EPA. Thank you.
I don't think y'all get it about gas and oil and stuff. So let me see if I can help you understand it. You don't need to drill offshore or have pipelines if the government's going to ration gas and you can't get it anyway. You don't need a whole lot of oil and gas if the government's going to invest in Solyndra and other kinds of companies that have nothing to do with oil and gas. Why would we need more oil and gas? I mean, this administration is going to make it impossible for us to do what we want to do when we want to do it in our automobiles, trucks, trains, airplanes, and anything else. We don't need all that gas. So why are you surprised that he's not interested in gas or oil or anything else? You're not going to be able to heat your house with heating oil because there won't be any. It'll all be done by some other, oh yeah, the wind turbine things. It's part of the philosophy of this administration to do none of this because you're not going to need it when he's finished with it. If you give him 4 more years, he'll be finished with it, and finished with us too, because we won't be doing any of this. And you'll be buying GM cars, only there won't be enough of them because he'll ration them. So if you got a horse and a buggy and stuff like that, I think this is serious business. And I think that's actually what they're doing. And I think it's not going to change until we change him out of office. This is serious business, and not to make light of it, but we need to do everything we can to build up our energy capacity and take advantage of the natural resources that God has gifted this country with. I will share with you, I have a degree in forestry from the University of Tennessee because I respect the environment, and I respect it because it's God's gift to us. But now it's a political issue, and there's no coming together of those two things for me. Yes, we need to take care of ourselves before we take care of anybody else, and yes, we need to get to energy policy on a comprehensive basis and start working on it now.
All right, we're going to keep this going, but it's been almost an hour and a half. We're going to take a 10-minute intermission, come back, and we'll start taking questions from the audience and use the time we have here. This is going good. Thank you. Yeah.
The question I submitted,
I'll try to get to it. I want people to be able to stand up and ask questions as well. So 10 minutes, come back.